Nantuko says, Ryan, I have been speedrunning Mario Kart 64 and bought a thing for it. It came with 2 floppy disks and uses a serial port. Nice. You have not... I shouldn't say lived. That's the wrong way to put it. I know how old you roughly are if you've ever loaded software via cassette tape. Raise your hand if you've loaded software via cassette tape. Anybody? You think I'm lying? Anybody think I'm just making this stuff up? I think me and the olds have probably done that. Olympic decathlon. Oh yeah, buddy. That reminds me of a story. So can I tell you how I got ripped off in Hong Kong? So, and then we'll say goodbye to YouTube. I lived in India when I was 11 years old to 13. So 6th and 7th grade I spent in New Delhi, India. My parents were teachers. They took teaching jobs overseas, and we lived on campus at the American Embassy School in New Delhi. One of them, not one of, the most formative experience of my young life, to live in India for 2 years like that. It radically changed my perspective on a lot of things. That was in the mid-'80s, and when I was coming back home in 1985, our family, we were moving back, and I was in India with my mom and stepdad. And I flew back home when I was going to be living at my dad's for a bit. Hadn't lived with him for a couple of years, so going to spend some time with him. And he had just gotten a new PC. He got a computer. I was so excited by this. Now, I had a Commodore 64 that I loved, and it was my first computer, thus the cassette drive software loading. But my dad had like an IBM. You know, it was going to be it was a real piece, you know, a IBM computer. And our journey back to the States took us through. We traveled the world while we were there, and on the way back, we went through Hong Kong. So stayed in Hong Kong for a day or two or whatever. And I wanted more than anything to play decathlon on my dad's computer. And so I went to the tech area of Hong Kong, and I went into a shop that clearly sold that kind of stuff, software, whatever. And I tried to explain to the shopkeeper what I wanted, that I wanted decathlon. And he didn't know what I was talking about exactly, but I was explaining. I'm a 13-year-old kid. I'm so excited, and I told the shopkeeper that I was traveling back home to see my dad in Seattle, and that I wanted to get decathlon. I think I named some other game. I named 2 games, decathlon and something else that I was really looking forward to playing. And the shopkeeper said, you write down the games you're looking for, and I'll get them ready for you. Anybody see where this is going? I told a Hong Kong shopkeeper that at age 13 that I was leaving the country in a day. And he was like, well, let me help you. You go do some other shopping and come on back here, and I'll have your software ready for you. So I wrote down and misspelled decathlon, by the way, misspelled it. Wrote down the other game, gave the shopkeeper my the piece of paper, went around, did other things. I came back later. He sells me 2 floppy disks with the stickers on them and a typed out words, decathlon, misspelled, and whatever the other game was that I ordered. I didn't think anything of it. I mean, hell, I misspelled it. I thought he spelled it correctly. So I'm 13. You know how much money is worth to you at 13? It's like money is worth about 100 times more to a 13-year-old than to like anybody older, right? And I gave everything I had left to get these games, and I was so happy. I thought these were real. I took those discs home, and understand also at 13, I was thinking about nothing else from the time that I bought that misspelled Decathlon floppy to the time I put it into the PC at my dad's house and got ready to fire up Decathlon, and it didn't work, and there was nothing on it, and I thought, I'm so naive. I'm like, oh, something must have gone wrong. It got messed up in the travels, or like I didn't even put it on. I didn't even figure it out then. It was only when I told my dad my sob story and said, this software doesn't work, and and he's like, let me see, and he's like, this isn't how you spell decathlon. Is this even? And then it slowly dawned on me that a Hong Kong shopkeeper gladly parted this fool with his money. But money well spent. That was quite the life lesson. I didn't make that mistake again. I got nice and jaded and and stopped trusting anybody. So actually, that's not true. I can probably list off another 20 places I got ripped off or tricked or something similar somewhere between then and now, and there will probably be a handful more before it's over anyway. But I did get a good story out of it. But man, poor 13-year-old Ryan was utterly heartbroken. Then shortly, the first game I did play on that PC, and I've told this before too, though, was the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text adventure. I don't know if any of you have played the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text adventure. It is acknowledged as one of the hardest text adventures ever published. And I played it and beat it, having never read the books and having no help from any, phone calls or internet or anything. It's a great game, but it's super hard. And I still think I peaked at 13 because of that. I don't think any of my gaming accomplishments that I've had since have eclipsed beating Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy text adventure with no help and no context for what the books were about or anything. And the good news there is I thought the text adventure was so damn funny, I went out and bought the books, and Douglas Adams became one of my favorite authors. I love those series. So, little story time, and now we'll say finally, goodbye, YouTube. Thanks for hanging out. We'll catch you next time. Yeah, it's really hard, and there's emulators out there. Actually, if you've never played it before and you like Douglas Adams, if you're a fan of the books and you've never played the text adventure, go look for a Hitchhiker's Guide text adventure emulator, and they've added graphics now and stuff. It's actually, I've played it in the modern, because I wanted to reconnect with my 13-year-old self, and so I started playing that, and you can find it out there. And it's because Douglas Adams wrote it. I mean, Douglas Adams is responsible for, as I understand, the text in the game, and it's funny. It's very funny.